good thing that you guys are here. Thank you for coming. Also, we have the food here on the line. So if you guys are hungry, you can bring your food there and eat and come back. That's a good thing as well. And many good things happened last week. We're gonna see them today. We have also F5 to sponsor us. So this good food is coming from F5. So thank you F5 for sponsoring that. Yeah, so that's our 8 meetups during that year. Thank you for coming. As usual, you guys have food. If you want to eat, drink in the area, that area. If you want to listen, come back. If you want to have Franco, you can go there. So you can keep that area in mind. Yeah, so that's it. Today we have a lot of things, actually. Too many things, too many exciting things. We're gonna start with the AWS. Fahim gonna start. Later we're gonna have a big talk from F5 as well as Red Hat. In the middle and between, you guys, if you are hiring, you can also prepare the things that you are hired for, or the positions, so you can present it also, or you can talk about it. Yeah, that's it. I'm handing it over now for Fahim. Please welcome Fahim from AWS.
Yeah, so give me a moment while we set up a quick switch. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to AWS's offices. It's good to have you here. Just by a quick show of hands, how many people have never been here before? I just want to know who's brand new. Wow, a lot of liars in the audience today. I only have one request. It'll be the only request I make for the evening. Actually, that's a lie. It'll be 2 requests that I'll make. The first one is, if you can please scan this QR code. We'd love to be able to host more user group events, whether they're AWS user groups, whether it's our friends at CNCF, or maybe you yourself are your own user group lead and want to be able to use AWS's offices and talk a little bit more about whatever you're passionate about. Having feedback forms like this is really important. So we're only going to be asking you, what do you guys do, and what do you think about the event, and are you using AWS? It's very straightforward, so there's that. I just wanted to talk about a few things. The first thing is, in case you've been living under a rock for the past week, the AWS region is live. You can start using it today. Can we get a round of applause for that? This is a wrong number, by the way, because of the currency exchange. It's actually 30 billion ringgits invested in Malaysia over the next 10 years, 10 or 15 years, right? And so, along with a single data center, it's not just a single data center in AWS that we've launched. It's 3 separate availability zones, and each availability zone has its own at least 1, if not 2 data centers. So we're looking at an order for between 6 and 9, and we can't tell you how many that is for now, but it's 3 separate distinct locations. So please start using it. And for a pro tip, for those of you who have workloads in another region, I'd probably do a price comparison to see how Malaysia is faring. It's pretty cost effective. Now, along with the region launch, there's a little small thing that I wanted to kind of promote. So there's a tool that the Malaysian SAs have built. It's built by local Malaysian SAs. It's called Service Screener. And I want to tell you a little bit about it if you can give me a few minutes. And I think it'd be very useful for everybody here as a developer. So the first thing is, in AWS, we have this thing called a well-architected framework. It's a best practice guide that teaches you how to build in the cloud and looks over things like security, cost optimization, resiliency. It looks at if you're building things in a performant way. And often when we were going through this, and you'd work with an AWS solutions architect like myself, it would take you a number of hours to go through it, right? So what we ended up doing is we built a tool that runs automated checks in your AWS environment. And you get a wonderful tool like this. I'll show you guys what an output looks like. It's available on GitHub. It is open to use. You can look at the code, make sure there's nothing weird going on. It's completely, well, it's almost free to run. Usually customers spend less than $0.01 to run it. And I'll talk a little bit more about the features, but it gives you a snapshot of your AWS environment. And to run it, it's actually also free to run because you open it up in Cloud Shell. And again, Cloud Shell is a free service that you can use. You go ahead and copy and paste from the GitHub repo. I'll show you that in a moment. You run it, and that's it. And then you download the file to run. So it's very secure. We get no feedback from it. We don't really know if you really run it as well. And you get a full report that's just for you. And you can look at the index and the HTML for yourself. It also comes in JSON format. So for some reason you want to white label it. You want to say that you made it. Go ahead. It's open source. It's all for you. Right? Download the report, and then you launch it. Now, let me show you a little bit of how it looks like, if I can open it up. So this is the GitHub page. So again, Service Screener V2. V1 was written in PHP. That's not great. We rewrote it in Python because we saw that most people like Python, and we want people to be able to contribute to it. In fact, I think it was December 2023 or December 2022 when we did a presentation to the AWS user group. A few of the features were made by the community. So if you want to contribute to something that's an official AWS sample and get some good GitHub repo stars and put that on your CV, come on and contribute to it. So if you want to look at a sample report, so you want to see if it's worth running, there's a little link here. I've already opened it. Now this is just a sample report that we've run in a particular environment. And this is what you will see when you run it, right? When you download the report. You'll see all of the issues you have across your performance efficiency, your security. So let's look at this example one. So EKS is on here too. I know we're going to be talking a little bit about that later. But let's look at EC2 for a moment. So you can decide where you want to look at, what pillar, whether you're looking at operational excellence, whether you're concerned about reliability. I like to talk about cost optimization because that's important. You can choose the criticality as well. So if you want to have a conversation with your boss and you're trying to decide where you should kind of attack first, Service Screener will help you. But by far, my favorite feature is called Show Low-Hanging Fruit. So this is going to show you all the things you can fix for that particular service that have no cost to fix and incur no downtime. A great example is something like this. So under the cost optimization pillar, you can see that these particular 3 EBS volumes have no IOPS. They're probably not being used. You probably have them up. You're paying for them. You might as well delete them. And it also gives you a link to a guide on how to delete it. So if you're an AWS partner or if you're someone who is working with partners, you can run different compliance frameworks like the Foundational Tech Review. If you're a startup, we have Security Startup Baseline, and it will run it against your account and tell you all the things that you should immediately fix. Again, quick little fun tool, completely free, no charge to you, and you're welcome to contribute. So I'm going to leave this up. If you want to start using it, please start it. It's the only way we really know that you liked it or you used it because we have no tracking on this. If you want to contribute or if you have any feature requests, there's an email right here. Take that down, send us an email, and somebody from AWS will get back to you. Okay, well that's it for me. I just wanted to show you these things. I'll be around for the next half an hour or so. If you have any questions, it's in for me. Siddhan, up to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that good service. Like, I like it. And also, I like the AWS new feature. So next time you guys have a problem with the server, you can go to the Zoom and start like buzzing the AWS. Till then we have a problem, then you can fix it. Or you can directly connect your computer with the server, then you start to debug it. Live debugging. Yeah, that was a joke that you guys did. Just click on. Alright, so the next topic is a very interesting one from F5. Future-proof Kubernetes app connectivity with Nginx Gateway Fabric with Laurent and Jason. Please welcome them.
Hey everyone, my name is Jason. I am a product manager within the Nginx org at F5. Happen to be in the region this time, and I was asked to do a very brief intro for Laurent, who's going to be far more interesting than I am. But I'll give a quick brief intro. I would guess that most folks in this room know what Nginx is, so I probably don't have to spend a ton of time getting into it. It's one of the primary web servers used across everywhere in the world. In fact, it is over a third of the known websites in the world use Nginx as a web server, and it has over 1 billion Docker polls, and at the time that this slide was made, was the most downloaded Docker image as well. So we also have a series of other open source projects that I would encourage people to check out. We take our stewardship of our open source projects very seriously. So obviously we have Nginx, we have Gateway Fabric, which Laurent is going to speak to later and give you a much more in-depth conversation on. We also have Ingress Controller for managing ingress into your Kubernetes clusters. We have Nginx Agent, which actually adds an API and observability to our Nginx Plus, or Nginx Open Source. That's actually something we use as a component in our commercial products, but we've made it completely open source for anybody to use themselves. We also have, if anyone is familiar with NJS or Nginx JavaScript, it adds a lot of extensibility to Nginx, and if you're looking to do more beyond the basics, it's a great option. Again, open source and freely available. And Nginx Unit is actually what we call polyglot app server. Right now, one of the things that our team is working a lot on with Nginx Unit is working with WebAssembly. So if anyone's familiar with WebAssembly and kind of having those portable applications, the Nginx Unit project is really great for serving those up and bringing those projects to life. I'd highly recommend you check it out. The people who work on that are incredibly passionate and love getting out there, and if you find it interesting, they're easy to engage with in the repo and talk to via issues. The other thing I want to mention that people may or may not be aware of is historically, Nginx has been hosted in Mercurial for, 20 years. Is there a lot of Mercurial fans in the audience? That's one. Okay, there we go. Well, bad news for you. We are moving to GitHub in September. So for a lot of other folks, I know GitHub is obviously the preferred and more commonly chosen repository. So Nginx is actually moving to GitHub as our official repository, and so you'll be able to engage directly with our developers there, see all of our changes, raise issues, try and commit via PRs, all through GitHub later in September. We don't have an exact date yet, but there's work being done to have it mid to late September, I believe. We have a read-only version of the repo there that you can go to, but the one that you can contribute and engage on will be up later in the month. Very briefly, I will plug if anybody has interest in our wider range of use cases beyond just our open source projects. We also have some commercial offers, but like I said, still open source is at the heart of a lot of what we do. And so if you're looking to expand those use cases a little bit, feel free to check out any of our offerings. But we also would just love your engagement with the open source projects, asking questions, getting involved with the community. We always love to hear folks. I unfortunately have to run to catch a flight, so I'm not going to be around too much longer. But Laurent and some of my colleagues here will be, and they would love to hear from you guys on things, good, bad, or ugly, about Nginx. We always want to hear it, be able to see what we can do for you. So I'm going to introduce Laurent now, who will have a very great demo and presentation on
Pressure. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that. That happens sometimes, especially when you don't want it to happen. So thanks for coming over, and we will explore one technology and one open source project that we have, which is called Nginx Gateway Fabric. That project is nothing more than the implementation by Nginx of the Gateway API specification of the CNCF Foundation. Okay, so in a nutshell, there are a few things that I just want to go over and address with you. A little bit about myself. I'm in charge of the technical aspect for Nginx in the region, ABCJ. So I'm not alone. I have a team of people supporting me to promote and support customers using Nginx. And the team here is in Malaysia as well, with Halim standing over, is also a good support and helping me out with that. But let's get into the topic itself, Kubernetes Gateway API. The reason and the intent of that project mainly is for what? You all know when you run a Kubernetes cluster, you have something which is called an ingress resource, right? that is the main component of the Kubernetes infrastructure that takes the traffic from outside and just deal with it inside the cluster. That technology has, I would say, some limitations in a way. First, it's quite complicated to extend and add capabilities to it. It's also, I would say, difficult to enrich and to make use of any specific implementation or capability a vendor would have. Let's say, for instance, security or joint authentication, validation, or zero trust. These kind of things are quite complicated to put into action. And there are new capabilities or new ways to integrate those things which are quite complicated. Sometimes you will have to extend the Kubernetes API to understand what you want to do and then deploy what we call CRD, custom resource definition, to go over that. One way that the Kubernetes API allows to do things like that is annotation. So put specific blocks of instructions. So your specific technology would just use those and implement advanced capabilities. So this is where and how a lot of vendors or technology specific would add, I would say, advanced capability and make the usage of Kubernetes a little bit friendlier or more secure in certain use cases. Okay? The drawback of that is, as you can see, you have to know which implementation, which capability that you want to use, and which is the syntax of the things that you want to implement. So in terms of errors, that's really easy to kind of screw an entire deployment of application and break the whole, I would say, rollout of applications or the whole reliability of your service that you're running. We have a lot of stories that we can share, maybe later, about crashes or downtimes just because of maybe a syntax error in those blocks of annotations. So, other thing that vendors would have to do, and that's what we have been to do as well as Nginx and as F5, is to add those custom resource definitions to extend the Kubernetes API to understand what we can bring in terms of capability to the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so let's talk about split traffic, let's talk about security. You will have to install those extensions into the Kubernetes API to make sure that you could leverage those capabilities into the Kubernetes clusters and different operations. Okay, so what is the consequence of that? That means that you have to extend and extend and extend and extend the Kubernetes API with those CRDs over and over each time you introduce a new use case or new technology or new implementation in your Kubernetes environment, and create of security, maintenance, upgrades of version, compatibility between CRDs and versions of Kubernetes API. So that is a big, I would say, concern for most of our customers. Okay, so that's one thing that we see as vendor implementing those technologies as a drawback, but it is also something that the foundation as well, the CNCF has found as a big issue, and they decided to do something to address that. Okay, so in order to address that, what they have started to do is to put most of the vendors together to get them through the SIG network group in the CNCF community and ask everyone, guys, we need to do something to have something standard. So our developers and users of Kubernetes could have a standard way of specifying the use cases or the usages, the resources that they want to do in the Kubernetes cluster, and don't be dependent on the implementation of those capabilities. Okay? So that means that if I'm a developer and I want to do specific traffic splitting, traffic routing, or security, or advanced protocol, I don't have to care about what is the underlying technology, but just leverage what Kubernetes API would give me, so I can do that. So that's exactly what the Gateway API specifications are, a set of extensions backed by the CNCF, and bring, I would say, kind of a dictionary of those capabilities across all the vendors, and all have to comply to that. The good thing of Gateway API is it's across multi-vendors, so they have to agree on that usage. And the benefit for most of us is to have something which is standard and could be replaced by any implementation without impacting the whole CI/CD pipeline to roll out the applications and things like that. Okay, so last year, the Gateway API specifications version 1.0 has been released around October, just before KubeCon in November 2023. And that was really a good, I would say, forum to announce that and to launch it. Because after that KubeCon last year in US, most of the cloud vendors, most of the vendors started to implement it and to promote it. So therefore, also us as Nginx, we said, oh, that's great. Let's try to help out there and embrace that new technology and make sure that we have a project open to support it with our open source technology and make sure that we have most of our users, developers, to endorse it and to support it moving forward. Okay? So with that release of the version 1 of the API, we started that project that we call Gateway Fabric, right? And the benefits are really driven by the usage of Kubernetes that our customers are doing or you are doing in the different environment. Okay, you're not all doing just HTTP applications, right? You're not just running basic web server application in your Kubernetes cluster. You have mobile apps using services defined in a Kubernetes environment. You have security in your Kubernetes environment. You have different people working on the same application or on the same cluster at the same time. So they have to have, I would say, guardrails in terms of operation that they do in that Kubernetes cluster. So there is a need to have some kind of governance or control on what everyone can do inside the Kubernetes cluster, and in terms of which operation that they could do from that point on. Okay, so what Gateway API specification gives and what benefit most of our users will see with that project is that they have something standard. They just rely on that dictionary, which is official, evaluated and promoted and upgraded by the community, by the CNCF Foundation, and therefore everyone complies to that. And of course, the implementation is less dependent on those specifications. I would say, kind of a personal opinion, that's really something very interesting, not only in terms of engagement of the community, but having all the vendors to contribute to that project and to direct where the efforts should go, and getting everyone to agree on how to use that is quite amazing as well, because you will see many competitors agreeing on how to enforce and how to deploy these kind of things and make them available for you, customers and users of Kubernetes platform. Okay, so one concept which is very, I would say, guiding in terms of design is that notion of gateway. Okay, and those notion of gateway class. So in a Kubernetes cluster, meaning that you could have one or multiple gateway, and those gateway will manipulate routes of the traffic to the different services. Okay, and those routes can relate to different protocols. Could be HTTP, gRPC, later on GraphQL, MQTT. All those protocols will have that notion of routes that you could definitely manipulate in terms of traffic splitting, in terms of operation selection, routing at the application level. So these are really interesting notions. And specifically, if you have those notions of roles attached to these objects, that gives even more flexibility in giving more flexibility to the developers themselves and the platform ops to act on the object that they are allowed to. And we see, for instance, we have Red Hat here as a partner. We see a lot of customers consolidating more teams, more projects on one Kubernetes cluster, meaning that everyone has to be able to work without breaking out what the other team is doing. And that's one answer to overcome the limitation of the ingress resources. Okay? More graphically, what that gives is again that notion of being able to operate granularly the traffic going to an application, to a service specifically in Kubernetes, and really giving more freedom to developers to characterize or select the traffic that they want to have in their specific application or specific services. Okay, and that's really an ask that we hear, I would say, today when we meet application teams or platform ops. That's a real ask, and that's a real solution to address these kind of issues. Okay, so a few more slides to kind of highlight what I was just saying in terms of protocols and route objects that you could manage with the gateway API specifications. So HTTP route, TLS route, gRPC route, UDP routes are really things that go beyond what the ingress resource by itself would allow you to do. And this is where the flexibility of the gateway API specification is. Okay? And I do insist on the fact that this is not something Nginx specific, this is Kubernetes specific, so it applies on Red Hat OpenShift, Google clusters, AKS, EKS, vanilla Kubernetes kind, which is on the Kubernetes, I would say, cluster as well. So everywhere, this is the same specification, the same object that you could manage, in that when I try something on my laptop with those objects, copy, paste the YAML in Google Cloud, for instance, and have the same effect to my application. Okay? So that new API has, I would say, different levels, and that's where also the governance of the CNCF is quite important, in the sense that minimum set of features to address was what the ingress resource was able to address, right? And that's the minimum and what they call the core level of the gateway API specification that most of the implementation must comply with, okay? But those group of vendors specifically discussed with the CNCF Foundation and the SIG network group to agree on two other layers where they could add specification and where they could add, I would say, things which are specific to their technology and to expose them to users and platform operators, okay? So the gateway support, for instance, the extension level of the API are something that the gateway API's conformance test will check as well, to make sure that this goes and agrees to what everybody has discussed on, and also allow vendors to go with a custom set of specification that they could add to the API when they are validated from the CNCF perspective. Okay, so again, covering minimum set of what we were doing or able to do with the ingress resources, but giving flexibility to go with another level and other methodology to implement advanced manipulation of traffic or traffic management inside Kubernetes clusters. Okay. So that's where the gateway API is going, that's what it brings, and that's why we do insist today to invite you to explore it and to play with it wherever you could, okay? So the Nginx implementation, I will go quite quickly with that, is again complying to those specifications. And one step, for instance, when you install it in your environment, is to get those specifications and to get them from the Kubernetes, the CNCF, I would say, GitHub repo. And starting from there, all the specification and all the YAML declaration that you would do from that point on are fully compliant with those specifications. So our role as Nginx is to make sure that we comply with that API and make sure from that API we control an Nginx data plane, open source or the commercial version, to make sure that what has been defined on that YAML declarations is totally applied to what you want to do with the traffic. And in that use case, for instance, that you see here, it's mainly a north-south type of traffic with some granularity that you could apply to it. And you will see, again, you have a lot of granularity in the sense of which type of traffic that you would like to capture and to divert to a specific service in the cluster. Okay? So why using Nginx Gateway Fabric? I'm a bit biased saying that it is something that we have, I would say, a lot of investment in, and to be totally honest as well, that was one of the projects that we put out there as an open source project, Jason was just saying that we're moving to GitHub. That was one of the projects that we natively created on GitHub so everybody could contribute. And our product managers are also using GitHub tools to manage the roadmap of that specific project. Okay, so it's really something that is open to the community, and we interact with these developer-oriented tools. Okay, so the implementation, I would say, is compliant with what the Gateway API specifications are enforcing. The extensions as well, I would say, are leveraging what Nginx can do, joint authentication, security, all the things that we have specifically with Nginx, we implement them as well as extension to the API gateway, meaning that most of the capabilities that developers are using or were previously using with annotation can be used with a proper YAML declaration. Okay? And again, something which is very interesting, I would say, encouraging, and we will see in the coming years. Since day one, those gateway API specifications have been endorsed by the major cloud vendors and the major, I would say, Kubernetes platform vendors as well. To cite Red Hat, which is here with us, they are also implementing the gateway API specifications and giving you, say, ways to leverage those operational benefits inside of their platform. Okay. So technically and in more details, what it does, I won't go into the entire diagram, but where I would say the brain of the implementation is here in the sense that we understand what the API specification, the gateway API specification is, and how to translate that into Nginx specific configuration directives, and then push and instruct Nginx to behave in a certain manner to enforce the traffic management, to divert the traffic properly and specifically to your application and services in the Kubernetes environment. Okay. Quickly as well, why and where it is very interesting to consider the gateway API specification and Nginx Gateway Fabric as an example is it covers a lot of use cases, and it really helps you leverage more and more the Kubernetes platform moving forward. Okay, so one thing which is really interesting, and most of the enterprises are raising those aspects, the role-based model is really key in an organization, in the sense to mutualize more the Kubernetes platform and bring more workloads into Kubernetes, and of course leverage the platform's benefits. Okay. So again, another view, more details on what's capable, and you would see over time that most of the things that were addressed via vendor-specific CRDs will be covered inside the gateway API specification. And again, what I was just saying, one YAML declaration will cover all the vendor implementation, whichever the platform that you're using. So again, more flexibility into using those capabilities across different environments and different platforms. Okay, so most about to finish. Few use cases that I wanted to kind of highlight, and which are supported right now by the gateway API specification. So having the ability to do specific routing based on the path, for instance, these are things that you define in your YAML declaration quite easily. And that will be converted into, I would say, Nginx configuration to make that traffic routing very specific. Other example that many customers are asking for is how do I do blue-green or split traffic, and making sure that I can test my application granularly with specific, I would say, fraction of the traffic coming inside the cluster, test it if it works, and then slowly move the knob to put the new version into production. Having the ability to do method or cross-string parameters selection of traffic very specifically as well. These are things that you can do now with the latest gateway API specification, and apply that, for instance, to do validation of specific use cases or specific data set in your applications. and do that, I would say, in a standard way. And that's really interesting because that goes, again, to say who can decide which type of traffic that they want to handle or they can handle at the application layer. Okay, so quickly and to summarize, the benefit is, again, here, a gateway API is really a promising technology. Again, an open source project that we support. We have resources affected to it, and like Jason said earlier, we really engage with the community on that. As I was saying, the roadmap of that project is public. So if you want a feature, you have a debate on the feature, and lately we also have open a discussion on how users, customers would like us to implement certain functions. These are things which are publicly open, where you could definitely interact with the engineers and the community from that point on. Okay, so the latest release of the gateway API specification is 1.1 last May, and we have our fourth release of the Nginx Gateway Fabric that we have released last month, if I'm not mistaken, this month in August, where we caught up with the latest release to implement most of the capabilities there. So again, simply invitation for you to go download the code and try it on your environment and give it a go and see how easy it is, and maybe compare it with other implementation and see what you prefer and what you would like from that. And if not, again, call out, just go GitHub and say, this wasn't what I was expecting, and if there is a way to do a change at that level. Okay, so that's all I had. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. And bonus, if you raise your hand to ask a question, I have release. I have release. So I hope that will motivate you.
I have one question.
One question.
Send it to you. Okay.
All right. My question is that you showed NGF flow diagram over there, innit? The NGF flow diagram which was shown.
Yeah.
Right at the bottom, you were showing the vault secrets, Nginx secrets. So my question is the vault coming by Nginx?
No. It's Kubernetes, managed secrets.
Oh, okay, it's Kubernetes
Yeah.
itself.
We communicate with the Kubernetes API.
Kubernetes API.
Yeah.
All right.
Question?
Okay. So I think as part of the gateway API stack, there's also a subgroup called Gamma, which implements a service mesh. And I know Nginx also have your own service mesh implementation. How does that work together?
So we used to have an implementation of service mesh, which was sidecar based. Okay, this is something that we have dropped over time. We working with gateway API's specification to find a way to implement service mesh. We hope without sidecar. So this is still being engineered right now. But we have not made any announcement on that, but we're hoping to give the community a way to do service mesh capabilities or services without sidecar. So technically we can discuss on ways to do things like that, but yeah, we are really hopeful to be able to release those capabilities.
Continuing on that question, will that be eBPF based? I don't want to teach that.
We're considering that, yeah. eBPF, hacking the routing or DNS inside Kubernetes, helping, so there are multiple ways to.
Following the same question. Well, you already.
Sure.
Yeah, I got it. As you're already going using the eBPF, and I know that it's mostly app focused. However, when you're using as in the routers and stuff, so apart from layer 7 to layer 4, are you planning to go into layer 2 like LLB doing it?
No, Nginx specifically, no, not really. We try to stay L4.
Okay.
most likely. But yeah, not below that. We said Nginx. We said 5. Yes, no problem.
I have a question. Like, you guys
Sure.
are. I can't take a picture. Yeah, you dropped the service mesh long time, and now you are introducing it again. SEO as well, they did, and they removed the sidecar as well. So, you guys, what are you trying to compete with? Like, it's a business which is not taking so long. So, I'm looking for the competitors or the competition that you guys have. Is it like?
The thing is, again, it's not technical, but more business. When we discuss with customers about service mesh's benefits, they point out three things: visibility, MTLS, and traffic control. Does it need a sidecar? Maybe not. So we're still kind of thinking that yes, we might be able to achieve those 3 goals without a sidecar.
But SEO had
Yeah.
removed the sidecar long time.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, okay.
Yeah, but you have the whole ecosystem with the gateway and things like that. Yeah. Okay.
Those Kubernetes started to do the
Yeah.
gateway.
So yeah, stay tuned. I think with as I said, this is open topic, and you could go and see where we are on these discussions on GitHub.
One last question.
Okay. Sure.
You mentioned routing in there. So are you going to be using sort of BGP routing and other stuff implemented in there?
Good question. So we have other solutions to address these BGP and routing, very heavy type of workloads.
Yeah.
Or service proxy for Kubernetes. That's more on the F5 side of the house.
Okay.
And we can and they are also compatible with the gateway API specifications. So meaning that in some cases you could implement both in your Kubernetes environment and address those type of use cases. Okay. So you have a question for me? Thank you. I'm around. If you have any other topics, just come and bother us. Halin, Ron, Zen, maybe we're all here to answer your questions, so don't hesitate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Laurence. Thank you, Jason, as well. You guys had a good topic today. So yeah, who knows what is open directory, guys? Who's using that? Open directory. Open directory. Who's using that? Okay, so cool. So there's a couple of updates from Open Directory as usual. The Open Directory project is a heavy project. I don't know if you guys are able to catch up to that, updates or that, but it's too many things. We focus only on the collector and the SDK for Go. So they did have released the SDK for Go with a good update, which is the gRPC for log. Previously they did for HTTP, now it's only available for gRPC. That might change, so if you want to try it, give it a try, but do not rely on it because it might be some breaking change in the middle. The collector version v1.13 has been released. They do have many things, but the good thing that they do have a profiler collector, which is very interesting. I would advise you to go and check it out. And yeah, many thanks and OpenCBT. I hope you guys can follow it. The other thing is AI is here. So version 1.31 Kubernetes is here with 2 million improvements, 2 million features. I would recommend you guys go and check it out. It's very interesting. Try it out, give it a try. If you have any problem, reach out to the community. Okay, so a new certificate it's coming soon, which is, I think from my perspective, it's a very good chance for us. And that actually, I faced it from a lot of companies since I joined them. But this one is a Backstage Associate certificate. Go check it out. It's actually very good. It's coming soon. You might think or try to take it. Yeah, over to food.
And that project is kind of okay. It's kind of very good, but still bothering me. I'm not sure if you guys are starting to use it or not. Yeah, IBM acquired like HashiCorp, right? They paid $6 billion. And then the future might change. Now, if it changes, it's okay. OpenTofu is compatible with Terraform. You can go and switch between all of them. But the more that OpenTofu is doing or developing more features, the problem is you cannot go to Terraform again. And then maybe Terraform, maybe IBM might be open it again, change the policy, people start using it, and then OpenTofu will be again go to deep side. Don't know. But let's see what is the future. Yeah, that's all from our Buzzcorner. Thank you guys for listening. Now, next topic, which is very interested by Chin Tan. Restoring order to your guys with Backstage. Please welcome Dan.
Hello, testing. Can you guys hear me?
Can you hear me?
Hello.
You guys remember we have a Lucky Pro. If you didn't register yet, scan the code, and then we're gonna announce it at the end of this session. So that's all.
Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Doesn't sound like it is. Okay, can you hear right? Yeah. Or it's actually breaking. I feel it's really breaking. Okay, so I'm Chiong Tan. You can call me CY in short. So I'm from Red Hat. Okay, so I'm actually the last speaker between you and your sweet home suite. Okay, so just a little bit introduction of myself, right? I also coming from developer background. Okay, I started as a software engineer, right? And slowly I kind of moving into solution architect path. So now I'm actually heading the solution architect team in Red Hat Malaysia. Okay, so as you can see, if you would like to connect me in the LinkedIn, you can actually connect me there. Right. At the same time, actually, I also kind of like as one of my hobbies, right? So I do create some demo videos, and I posted in my YouTube channel, right? So if you are looking for any others Red Hat products and demonstrations, feel free to check it out. Okay, so how many of you actually here is developers? I think the mic is not really working well. Hello, is it better? Okay. Okay, actually how many of you are developers here? Okay, great. So, I mean, if you are, doing a lot of developments compared to in the past, right? So you can see nowadays from day to day our life, we're actually using a lot of applications, right? Regardless of mobile apps, web applications, anything, right? And all these, behind the scenes are all developed by developers. Okay? So when I say developers, not only just the coders, right? Nowadays we have platform engineers, we have DevOps engineers, okay? So all this actually will kind of like bring more and more revenue benefits to the IT or all the business in the market. So that's where you probably heard this kind of team, right? Where we actually shooting left a lot of all these securities,
scanning, testing, everything onto developers' shoulders. So there could be a lot of tools that we need to use as a developers or any engineers. So for example, the Jira, right, for tracking your issue, your requests, right, probably documentation using Google Docs, CI/CD, Git repository. Okay, so you might need to actually bookmark a lot of URL because this could be all the tools that you are using in your day-to-day development work. Okay, so what happens if you actually have all these tools, different tools? That kind of like actually giving us a lot of difficulties when you have new people join on board, right? Before they actually start into doing some productivity work, they might have a lot of learning curve. How about departure? That means if someone left, right, whatever the work that has been done is very hard to actually pass down. Okay, because that guy could be like working here for maybe like 5-10 years, and a lot of things is not properly documented or in any way, right? So another one is the technologies overhead. So like I mentioned, right? So nowadays we got so many tools. We got Jira, we got Kafka, we got Argo CD, all these things. And there are times in one big organizations, different teams may use different tools. Then the last one, of course, the knowledge, right? So as I mentioned, different tools, different teams. So the knowledge used by all these teams will be different. Then how do we pass, right? How do we recreate all these same assets? Right? How do we maximize our reusability of whatever we have built? Okay. So according to the survey, this is getting, instead of like powering or empower the developers, it kind of like turn into the situation where now the development or the developers are suffering. Okay, so this is based on the real reports. So it kind of eventually supposed to be productive, right? It goes back to like slowing down the whole development, right? With just now all the onboarding, departure, all the kind of situations. So this is where the chaotic will come into pictures, right? So according to these IDC studies, so by 2025, you will see more and more organizations actually looking something called internal developer platforms to help to solve all the issues that I was talking about. How many can recognize this logo? Okay, you raise your hand, but you never answer. Yeah. So Backstage is one of the community project. Okay. So it's actually donated by Spotify. Right? So actually Spotify created this Backstage to solve just now all the chaos, all the problems I was sharing just now for the internals. And then they eventually donated to the community. Okay, and this Backstage actually is within the CNCF incubation project. Okay, definitely is an open source framework for you to build the developer portals, right? So within this Backstage, it kind of like give you a seamless experience, unify all your infrastructures, information, configuration, assets, all the toolings, all the services, as well as the documentations. So in a nutshell, these are the 5 fundamental pieces supplied by this Backstage out of the box. Okay. So first one, we have these software catalogs. So it's like a place, like a marketplace where you can browse what are the components, what are the assets your team or your organization has built and put it there. Right? You can find all the documentations, all the API information regarding that, so that you know how to consume and how to reuse. Right? Of course, it comes with the technical documentations. So instead of using any other documented tools, maybe Google Docs or Excel or anything, so it's actually giving you a very simple way of tracking all your documents while you're doing your development, right? And all this nature of this document actually is solved together with your codes. And then we have this plugin, right, which is giving you all the out-of-the-box integration to all the tools just how I mentioned, those Argo CD, Jenkins, CI/CD, so on and so forth. And then it comes with the templates. So templates helps in a way that you can put up some framework, some governance, right, for your team, for your organization to follow, right? So instead of like every team using different tools, maybe you can enforce using this template so that whatever they are doing will be aligned to what your organization's governance and the rules. And of course, the last one will be the searching functions. So this is an example of the look and feel, right? So where you're actually browsing all the catalogs, you can see who are the owners of these components, and then what type of assets is this, and then whether it's already in productions, and then there's description, so on and so forth. So some of the things that you can deposit will be the services, the website that you have built, or even libraries or any of the data pipelines. Then the tech documentations. So this is the one I mentioned that you will store together with your code, right? So it could be coming from different code repositories, but it will be centralized and integrated into this portal for you. Okay, plugins. This is where you actually can make use of these plugins to integrate to this portal, so that you can execute, and also you have a single pane of glass for the web page to actually execute the whole thing. So later I'll have a demo to show you how we actually can run a few tools, using a lot of tools that already with the plugin together with this Backstage. Okay, so at the moment we actually have more than 150 of the community plugins for this Backstage. So you can see some cute logos there, like the pipeline Stackton, Azure DevOps, Zira, Ansible, SonarQube, Jenkins. And this is the software templates. So you can implement things like the team best practices, what are the tools. So they actually can fill up the forms when they request for these templates. Then there will be an engine behind the scene, automated, created all these things for you. Right? So in the demo later, I'll show you those are the things, like all this Git repository, SonarQube, all of the provisioning when you actually fill out the form and request for this. Okay, so this is the search functions within the portal itself that actually allows you to search based on the keywords you key in for everything within the portal itself. Okay, so how Red Hat actually, play in these Backstage communities. So you can see this is quite a famous open source project that started a few years ago, right? And Red Hat joined this community in 2022. Okay, so you can see it's already like 5,100 plus fork projects, 15,000 contributors, right? So this is definitely something that is very hot in the communities. So for Red Hat, what we actually are offering is called Red Hat Developer, by taking the Backstage as community projects and we turn it into products to offer it to our enterprise customers, right? So definitely with all the fine things I was talking about. And on top of that, what is the different, brand developer hub versus the Backstage? So you can see the one in the red colors. So that is where something extra compared to the Backstage. Okay, so for example, we actually pre-integrated, tested this Backstage for developer hub to run on our Red Hat OpenShift, right? So we provide you the operators, provide you the simple way of doing the installation, upgrades, so on and so forth. We also provide the enterprise outlet, right, which is the access control that actually is very important, especially to the enterprise organizations. Okay, and of course it comes with support. So any issues you encounter, you can always raise a ticket, and then it comes with SLA, and you get support engineer to support you, whenever you face any issues. And the most important thing is the dynamic plugins. Okay, so for the Backstage, you might need to actually do a lot of your own integration and testing when you kind of put in the plugins into the Backstage. Right, again, similar to the OpenShift integrator, what Red Hat did is like we actually make it very simple. We test it out, and then we give you a simple way to install, update, and also remove the plugins. Okay, so these are the 4 things on top of the Backstage, from the Red Hat. Okay, so just give you a simple example. Okay, this is a real example. I can't disclose who is this, right? So it's one of the large international bank, right? They're actually facing the issues I was sharing just now, right? Because they have huge number of developers, right? And then they use a lot of open source tools, open source technologies. So this is where they actually meet into the problems I was mentioning about those who onboard, departures, documentation, so on and so forth, right? So they started to follow Spotify and use the Backstage. Okay, and they actually also meet a lot of problems when they go with the Backstage. So for example, since they are using the Backstage, we call it upstream projects, right? So a lot of times they may encounter some bugs, some issues with the Backstage, and they may actually maybe post this into the communities. But because this is not so-called commercially support, right? So a lot of times they will be prioritized to solve their problems. But they are using this in the productions to serve the customer like ourselves, right? Which definitely SLA is there, right? So definitely you don't want to use a backpack with a lot of problems, right? And also normally in the communities, the release is very fast, because everyone can contribute, even yourself. When you contribute, and all these things go into the communities, but it doesn't mean whatever you contributed actually is something that on demand in the enterprise of the world, right? So again, when it comes to putting into the production use to serve the bank customers, instead of keep on upgrade and doing all these changes, they need more longer support, more stable versions, instead of like keep putting all these new features, right? And of course, Red Hat is one of their trusted partners. So eventually, we kind of like join together, and the customer actually decided to migrate from the Backstage to our Red Hat developer hubs. Okay, so of course some of the things like audit logging, outbreak controls, integration, so on and so forth, all these are part of the reason as well. Okay, I got a very short demo. Let me show you. Will it be too small? Okay, so this is the looks and feel of the developer hub, right? So you can see from the left, when you log in, this is where your home page will be light. So you have some quick access where your administrator or your so-called the in charge person of this developer that actually can set up the whatever quick access here, right? So you also can put up some communities. Let's say you are using Slack as your one of your organization's channel to do the messagings. So you also can put up the developer tools, CI/CD tools, or any of the Kubernetes or OpenShift cluster that is available here, right? So in a way, you have some level of governance and control what are the tools your organization can use. As in for catalogs, right? So the moment you go here, it will show the so-called the components that owned by you, right? At the same time, you can go to check out others components that have been built by others. Okay, maybe let me take one, maybe this commercial. So from here you can see, you can view the source code of that particular components that potentially built by your team members or another team, right? There's this link points to the technical documents. So you can see if there's any issue requests, is there any pull or merge request. This is more towards the Git repository side of the thing, right? And also CI, if there's any continuous integration pipeline here, and then API, and also the dependencies, right? So this one is the most interesting one. So you can see a list of dependence components here, right? And also all the resources. But if you go into this graph, right, it actually shows you clearly. Okay, so for these components, right, so it's owned by this group, right? It's fall under these e-commerce systems, part of these components, and then there's an API provided by these components. And this component itself actually consumes a lot of APIs. If you look at all the lines here, right? So it gives you a very nice view of like the dependencies, you know, the API from the consuming and also providing perspective. Okay. And then if you like to search from API per se, right? So again, there could be some services, some API that your teams already built, right? That you can immediately reuse or refer instead of always create another versions. You can define the learning path, right? Again, this is more relating to the onboarding. Let's say you have new members joining the teams, and you want to kind of like provide them a structure based on your organization's culture and also the tools, right? So that is for the learning path. So for create, this is about the software templates. Okay. So let's assume a scenario. So I'm a new developer. So I join your organization today. Today is my first day, right? And the boss tell me, okay, I should be working on a Java projects, right? That requires some security controls with secure CI/CD pipelines, with some automated deployments onto a few environments, right? So I was told to use a template called Securing Focused Service Software Supply Chain. Okay? So I will choose these software templates. So I give a name, I give this ID, artifact ID, and also the package name, which is part of the Java programming, right? The POM file, if you're familiar with that. And then a little bit of descriptions. Okay? And then the image registry, right? A repository where you store your container images. Okay? So in this case, this organization should provided me only two, either something called Quay, or maybe it's a registry inside OpenShift. Okay, so I just pick one, and then you can see some of the values is pre-populated, right? Then next, and then the repository. In this case, I'm using GitLab as my Git repository. Okay, then I review the value and all these things. Then I'll click create. Then behind the scenes, you remember the automated creations based on this software template, right? So for the interest of time, actually I pre-created all these things for you, right? Just to show this demo, right? So we actually created a Git repository inside the GitLab for me, pre-integrated to the developer hub. SonarQube, right? It create projects and instance for me, so that it will do the static code analysis scanning, right? A repository for the query, which is storing the container images. Argo CD, right? Which help me to do the deployments to a few environments. Okay. It even give me a web-based IDE for me to do my development work. Okay, you can see the code is imported for me, so I can straight away do the code here, and then I commit and submit to the Git repository. So all these things actually is created by just filling a few information inside these software templates. Okay, so imagine how fast and how quick we actually can onboard a new members like myself today, the first day, right? I could be expert in doing programming, right? But I don't know about the tools, I don't know about the flow of your organizations. But with this tool, you can see all these things are become seamless to me, right? I can straight go into the coding mode. So once I created this, right, if I go back to the catalog, so this is the one I pre-prepared called Mike Walker's app. So you can see it's a similar things, right? So I can view my source code, I can view the technical documents, and this is where I access my IDE, right? So out of the box, it provides you two choices. One is using the VS Code, the other one is JetBrains IntelliJ. Okay, and then here with all this information, so on and so forth. It even has the topology, okay, which show three different environment, three different deployments. It could be coming from different so-called Kubernetes or even OpenShift clusters, right, at different location or whatsoever, right? But from here, I have one topology see all three environments. Right, along the development, of course, your users may request issues that you need to fix, some concerns. You can see all the information here, right? If you kind of implemented in the Git level with all these pull and merge requests, you will see all this information here as well. Okay, you can see there's this we call it pipeline, which is integrated from the GitLab. Okay, so again, these are all pre-populated with me. We just now, when I click the software template and create, I don't even have to build this pipeline for me, because this is something that my company, the organizations enforce, right? So you can see some of the steps here, like cloning the code, do the packaging, scan the source. So this is pre-integrated with SonarQube, right? As part of my this CI/CD pipeline here. Then it will build the image, and not just build the image, right? It also will sign the image. That means like, in a more layman terms, it will actually put a signature on this image, right? It's for security's purpose. Okay. Then it will upload this SBOC into something called CycloX, right? For you to view what are the libraries being used by these applications. Okay, and then it upload into this TPA, which is an analysis tool to check if there's any some outdated or some potential risk kind of libraries you use in your code. Okay, then after that, not only just the codes, the output, the container image. Within this pipeline, you also will do a checking, right? You will scan the image. For example, if you are, in Java development, you probably heard this log4js, or most of the tools got this vulnerability on the log4j, right? So this scanning will actually scan whether your container image has this log4j, right? Not only the image, right? Let's say you implemented some policies, right? Which is on the building of the image. This is where the image check will come in the pictures, taking your company policy to do a checking, not just only the vulnerabilities, but also your policies within your organizations, and how the deployments is being configured, right? For example, do you configure the CPU limits, the memory limits for your container to run? So you actually even check the deployments information from that sense. Okay, then eventually you actually upload into the query repository, and then start doing the deployment for the so-called development environments. Okay, then we can actually come to this Git repository, right? So you can see all the checking, everything is here, right? Then how do I roll out to the maybe pre-prod or even productions? Okay, so this is where we make use of this. Okay, we can create a tag within here, new tag, then I key in versions. The moment I submitted this new tag, it will automatically kick in another pipeline inside here. You see, it's a different pipeline, only just 3 steps. And this is deploying into my pre-productions. Alright? How about productions? So in this demo, I actually, instead of creating the tag, right, I actually create a release to kind of like auto deploy into my production. Then it will trigger another pipeline again, right? So remember just now I mentioned one of the steps actually is to put a signature into the image, right? So you can see the first step from this pipeline is to verify the contract. This is where they cross-check the signature, whether this is a trusted image that we are going to deploy into the production or not. Okay? So you may wonder, hey, what's the truth behind the scene to do all this deployment, right? So he actually is using this Argo CD. How many of you heard of Argo CD? Cool. So Argo CD also one of the CI/CD project, right? And also those CI/CD Jenkins that talks. So if you know Red Hat, right, we actually carry a lot of open source. We only carry open source software, right? And then kind of like make it to be enterprise level and provide to our enterprise customer, right? So I actually planning to do some changes on the code so that it trigger, but it will take some time. Right? So I pre-prepare all these things for you. So you can see this is not only just about onboarding, right? You can see with just a very simple software template, it actually creates so many things, minimize so many onboarding process for me. And most importantly, if you coming from a security perspective, you can see there's some coloring here, right? This is where is part of the scanning process. You actually can view the outputs from here. You can see it actually tells all the vulnerabilities inside this image, right? For this demo, of course, I make it everything pass through, right? But in real scenario, you should implement a step there. Now, if there's this critical vulnerabilities, you immediately stop the pipeline instead of go to deployment, right? And maybe put alert, send an email notification, so on and so forth, to prevent all these things, right? So you can see, as a developer, I don't even can do anything. All these things are in place for me with security standards, governance policies, and so on and so forth, right? And not just that, as a developer, I can actually come here to look at the CVE, look at what is the issue of this, and what are the recommendations, and so on and so on. You can see this is linked to the NIST website. right? You can find all the variety problem here. Okay, so that is the scanning tool as part of this software templates. So you might see so easy. I only show you like 5 to 6. Actually, behind the scene, it could be more than 10 tools out there, just to do this onboardings. Okay, so that is something that I want to show you as a demo, right? Yeah, just sketch through a few things. Some of the use cases, it could be a mix or something, right? So we do have customer actually take this as part of the application modernization journey. Right? It can also serve as a self-service portal. Right? Like just now the demo scenario, my boss told me to actually use these templates, then I just go there and kind of self-service to pre-integrate a lot of things, logins, repository, so on and so forth. And of course, all the frameworks, everything, the governance, you can actually enforce. So if you're interested to look for demos, you can actually, the one I showed is the developer hub from Red Hat, is a real environment, right? So you actually can also look at the demos in the Backstage. Right? Of course, the logo, the look and feel will be a little bit different, but the main features will be the same. So if you want to try it out, right? So for Red Hat, we actually provide something called Developer Sandbox. It's free access. You just register with your own email address, personal email address, and then you can request for so-called OpenShift environments, right? You can freely play with that. Then on top of that, you can actually play on this developer hub, on this Developer Sandbox as well. So it's totally free. When you request, it will give you 30 days validity. After that, then it will decomp, it will kill the instance for you. You can just request another one, right? So this is something that Red Hat provides as a so-called as a try it out kind of things for all the developers. And it also comes with some learning path, right? If you go to our developer.redhat.com, if you are interested to look at some of the basic guides, how to do this and that, right? So you can follow this learning path. And then we also have these free books. If you want to go into the deeper, right, to learn about, you can download this from our website as well. So these are the 3 champions that are writing the books. Yeah, that's all I have to show.
I really happy to see how Backstage is being used.
It's very cool. Thank you so much. Do you guys have any question?
Hello. From someone who never heard of Backstage before, how does it work well? Does it work well with rather large model repo? Something like a few gigabytes of size, repo size, with a lot of microservices. Okay, does it work well with monorepo, rather large monorepo? Monorepo, yeah. So does it work well, and how easy to integrate monorepo into Backstage?
Okay, I don't really come across this. Maybe we need to check whether if there's any plugin to support that. Yeah, but because this is an open source, right? So if you really keen to do that, you actually can take the SDK and build your own custom plugin for that. Anyhow, this is open source. Yeah, so we provide the SDK, the so-called the frameworks for you to build your own plugins. Yes, yes, correct.
Cool. Any other question? So you don't want to ask? Final
Free t-shirt?
chance? One question. Yeah, you're gonna get one.
Alright, well, so in Backstage, generally one of the biggest problems is plugins when it comes to bringing in something from outside. You generally have to modify the code and have access to the React components and bring in whatever binary you need on your local system and modify the code to show the component on the front and the back end. But then if you have something that's kind of SaaS and you have access to the code and how do you deal with those scenarios?
Yeah, I think, okay. That is where actually Redhat comes into the picture, right? So remember on the slide I mentioned about actually Redhat will help to do all this work for you, right? Make your life easy, how to install a plugin, how to update the plugin, or even remove the plugin without actually going to the code level to do all the things you mentioned last time, right? But definitely that is something that very common in communities, right? A lot of times you might need to go down low level to take the binary, take all these manifests, to kind of like integrate and gel for yourself. Of course, if there's any blogs that you can reference from any of the contributors, that will be even better. Yeah, correct. Yeah, so yes, I mean I understand, there will be situation that it may not available in the 150 plus plugin desk, right? But because this is open source, you can always take the SDK to custom and build your own plugins to your needs. Yeah.
Either with the community or to raise a pull request, or you build it yourself and start using it. You can customize it, or you can build your own.
Yeah, I mean you can put a request into the communities, right? I mean if there's a lot of demand, I think there will be more contributors to help to build whatever features or plugins that you think is valuable.
Yeah, there's a quick question. So with a small startup, 10 developers, what's the minimum size that they will start to contact Redhat? And will you give a free one for less than 50 developers?
If I remember correctly, you asked this before. Okay, actually I presented this in another committee before, right? So I think the same question has been asked. So it goes back to the values of, whether you want to onboard this, right? So taking the example of, let's say only 10 developers, right? How chaotic it can be, what kind of values you will bring, right? Depends on just a few use cases I shared with you, right? So eventually, if it's a small team, you might not need something like this, right? You can easily control, how the 10 developers can be built, what kind of tools, and so on and so forth, right?
Thank you. Any other question, guys?
So I went to your previous I know about Backstage. Okay.
So I did do demo last time, right?
Yeah. So my question is, let's say we self-hosted the Backstage, meaning that we set up our own, can we download from Redhat plugins to our own custom Backstage?
Okay, so how Redhat model work is that, we not only extract from the communities to make it to the so-called enterprise, right? We actually also contribute back to the community, right? Because we have our own paid customers, sometimes they may have some issues, some bugs, right? So this is where, based on our SLA, our engineer will immediately create a fix for our customers. Then at the same time, we also contributing back to the communities, right? So whatever plugins from Redhat, definitely you will find a so-called equivalent of the community plugins in the communities like this.
Cool. Thank you so much. Any other questions? We will take one more if you guys have. This dude didn't take t-shirt. Next one. Last one. Roll again.
Free teacher.
Roll and right.
So it's like